Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Our next guest, our person of interest, is someone whose work has helped more than 100,000 babies across the entire world. Ratul Narain grew up in the US, but it was right here in India that he created Bempu. It's a temperature tracking watch for babies that helps fight the threat of hypothermia.
So India recorded the highest number of preterm babies in 2020, and the preterm birth is the single largest killer of children under 5 years of age. Now, Ratul's device was called one of Time magazine's 25 best innovations as well. So let's go out straight away to him to find out more about what's really happening. Hi, good morning, Ratul. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Son. Hi, Toya.
Hi.
Great
hi.
to see you.
Can we just start by first asking you to tell us a little bit more about what exactly Bempu does?
Yeah, so Bempu, we're a Bangalore-based company that develops innovations to help reduce neonatal mortality around the world. We have innovations in the space of neonatal hypothermia, apnea, and kangaroo care.
I see.
Very cool. Okay, so what's the story? Tell us, Ratul, I hope it's all right to say that you have a slight accent. So the US clearly featured. How did you make it here? What's that journey like?
Yeah, so you're right. I have an American accent. So I was born in the US, but my parents are from Delhi. And so growing up, we used to travel a lot to, Nani's house in Delhi. And my father used to work for the World Bank. So I was fortunate also to travel to a lot of African and Middle Eastern countries at an early age. And so I was very aware of the healthcare that I had access to in the US versus what was available in other parts of the world. And so that was my story. I was very motivated from an early age to get outside of the US and work in this global health space. I eventually studied engineering at Stanford. I did biomechanical engineering, and they have a very great program around innovation and bio-innovation. And then I got an opportunity to work with Johnson & Johnson making cardiovascular medical devices in the US. But there was still that, I did that for about 8 years, but there was always that bug in me that wanted to get outside of the US and do something in the global health space. So my story is I took the leap and I came to India 13 years ago, and I got an opportunity to do a fellowship for a company that made low-cost incubators for babies. That got me really excited about the baby space, about the neonatal space, and also about entrepreneurship. So eventually I decided to spend 2 years doing field research, working in different hospitals, observing nurses all across India. And I was really trying to understand some of the top reasons why babies were dying or facing injury in India and around the world, trying to come up with, see what I could do to help.
I see. So, Ratul, the standards on when a baby is discharged, or preterm baby is discharged in India, are very different from how it operates in the world, which is why sort of brings your device into so much more use over here. But I just want to understand, with so many of these other sort of monitoring trackers that you tie around a baby's feet or hand, etc., out there, how is Bempu different?
Yeah, so maybe let me tell you a little bit about maybe I can tell you a little story about what happened when I did this field research that really prompted me to build this device and not other devices. So India has almost a fifth of the world's babies born here. And although there are preterm babies, there are also babies that are low weight. Almost a third of the babies, and those are term babies, but almost a third of the babies in India are born low weight. And so in the US, you might take these babies and still keep them in the hospital until they're something like 2.2, 2.5 kgs. But in India, once a baby is stable, you'll discharge them when they're 1.5, 1.6 kilograms. These are small babies going home. So I remember I was at a charitable hospital here doing my field research, talking to a doctor, and we were in her OPD together in the morning. After she finished her OPD, a parent came with a baby who was unfortunately deceased. And the doctor talked to the baby and, talked to them, not the baby, to the mother, and sort of understood what happened. And then the doctor came to me because I was an engineer trying to develop innovations. And she told me about that this baby had been discharged low weight from her hospital. The baby was feeding correctly. The baby didn't have infection. Baby had come back, was breathing fine for a follow-up. But what she suspects happened is that last night, this baby had gotten cold. And when a baby gets cold, it starts to burn off all its sugar and become hypoglycemic. It can become blue because it has trouble absorbing oxygen. This will cause organ failure or injury, and if it's not intervened quickly, that baby can unfortunately die. And this is especially common with low-weight babies. So what we tried to develop was a solution to help a mother like that at home just know that her baby's cold so she can go over there and warm the baby before anything happens. And that's why we developed our first innovation, the Temp Watch. Should I tell you a little bit about it?
Yeah,
Shall
sure.
I tell you?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
So this is our first innovation. It's called the Temp Watch. It's a tiny bracelet that goes on the wrist of the baby. Maybe you can see the picture behind me. And it's given to the baby usually around the time that the baby is being discharged from the hospital or coming off of the incubator. And it goes on the baby's wrist and it continuously monitors the baby's temperature. And if the baby is warm, it keeps blinking a soft blue light. And if the baby is ever cold or hypothermic, it beeps, it blinks a red light, it wakes up the mother or the father so they can warm the baby well before that baby has low blood sugar or trouble breathing or any injury. So what we tried to do in the design phase and developing this was really keep it simple, really keep it for that specific use case of a small baby getting cold at home and parents not knowing that this baby is cold and in danger.
Got it.
Ratul, it's not just India now, if I'm correct, right? It's the usage of this has expanded to countries in Africa too. And has that feedback been helpful? The feedback you might get from a hospital in Ghana, for example, is it different from the feedback you'd get in India, other Asian countries?
Yeah, so it has been very different. Actually, it has been different in different ways. I mean, I think one of the challenges was in India, generally, when we go, we can provide training, we can work with the staff, we can show them how to use it, we can get some, we can develop protocols, put posters on the wall. We're fortunate now that we have actually deployed with UNICEF in about 15 different countries and WHO and different governments and development agencies, especially across West Africa, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau. We recently did a deployment in Belize. But now we're doing these deployments remotely. We're doing deployments during COVID. So we had to have good training programs online. We had to not just teach about how to use this bracelet, but how to keep the baby warm. I mean, this alerts if the baby is cold, but you actually don't want the baby to get cold. You want to keep the baby warm. And when the baby's cold, what do? We had to translate our materials in different languages. So there's been a learning curve, but now I think we've got it to a point where it's very scalable. I'm happy to share that the Central American country of Belize now will be giving this bracelet to all premature babies over the next 2 years. And staff was very comfortable in deploying it because it is such a simple and easy innovation to deploy.
That's nice. Simple, easy innovation, but what about cost then, Ratul? Because if you want to scale it up in India, if you want to take it to other countries like Africa, that's going to be key.
Yes, absolutely. So every year we've been reducing the price. We sell in the private market at 2,500 rupees, which is a corporate rate. But when we sell to UNICEF and we sell to WHO, we heavily subsidize it. And every year we've been reducing the price. And I'm happy to say that almost 80% of the babies who have received our bracelet have ended up receiving it for free through subsidies that we've provided and through donations and funders that we have, like the Gates Foundation, and buyers like UNICEF and UN agencies.
Ratul, I believe we've run out of time, but it has been so lovely to talk to you, to get to know a little bit more about that innovation. Thank you for showing it to us. One can even imagine a baby's wrist fitting into that, right, into that bracelet.
I'm actually thinking it can be used for adults as well, for very old people as well, for temperature control is right there as well. Before we let you go, do you want to tell us what Bempu means? Why is it called Bempu?
It's a baby temperature monitor, and so I called it the Bempu monitor, and went with it.
Okay.
And
nice.
can it just to take someone's question further, can it be applied to people who are much older? Do thermometers exist for them? So there's no need in that sense.
It can. It works specifically on babies because when babies get cold, their hands and feet get very cold, and we pick that up, and we pick that up early. So it works great on babies. But if you or I get, first of all, I'm 90 kilograms. It's very difficult for me to become hypothermic. My body will shiver. But baby, it happens all the time, and we can pick it up even at the wrist. With adults, you'd have to do something a little different, either in the armpit or on the ear.